Chiza is a new teacher at Hope's Peak High School. She is put in charge of the 77th class by the president. Even though she was only meant to be an assistant, the homeroom teacher is hung over at the moment, so she'll have to deal with the class alone. She is really enthusiastic about it and runs off to introduce herself to the class. This is a school which is meant to house students who are extraordinary in their talents, and Chiza was once a student of the school, so she possesses special skills as well. We are introduced to the students: Kuzuryu, who is a gangster; Saionji, who is a dancer; Maharu, who is a photographer; Sonia, who is a princess; and Sumiki, who is a health committee member and a major klutz. Class has started, however, there are only 5 students present. Chiza is disgusted by the students' lack of care for one another and calls them the worst thing imaginable, rotten oranges. She enlists the help of the students to go find the rest of them, and she is very persuasive. She even earns the respect of the gangster. With that, they head out to find the other students, and their first stop is the men's restroom. A rumbling is felt, and while you may think it's an earthquake, it's actually the Taco Bell. It was just a student, Nida, who was a team manager, using the toilet, and he was majorly backed up, so he pushed a little too hard, but only a little. Next is Hanamura, who is a cook, but he is also a bit of a masochist. Moving on, the next person is your friendly neighborhood Japanese spider girl, Awari, who is a gymnast. She would be a hard one to catch, so they baited her in with meat and used Nide to catch her. The rest of the students: Soda, who is a mechanic; Tanaka, who is an animal lover and necromancer; Ibuka, who is a flaming hot musician; Peko, who is a swordswoman; and Nagito, who is lucky. Chiza takes them all back to class and forces them to clean the class while the rest of the students arrive. She heads to the former student dorms and finds Michiru, the animator. He tries to escape her, but trying to run is futile. We see a guy standing in front of a fountain when he is bumped into by a gamer girl. The guy, Hinata, recognizes the game and seems to be a fawn. This gets the girl's attention. Nanami is really excited to find someone that enjoys games as much as she does, but Chiza comes to drive Nanami away. She gathers all the students in the class and asks them to come to class from now on. They can't waste their youth away without getting to know their classmates. A few weeks have passed and Chiza has been successful in getting the students to come to class. This impresses the homeroom teacher, but she's a bit angry that she has to do all the work by herself. Just then, a frantic phone call comes in. Another teacher can't handle her class, so she has to go deal with it. She looks to Kamukura for help, but he has vanished into thin air. She runs to the class and sees Awari fly across the room. She is battling Nide, but she isn't strong enough to beat him. The rest of the students can't stop them, and the class is in shambles. But it is all within the rules because it counts as training. Awari can't find a way to beat Nide, so Hanamura offers his special soup. While probably not the best idea, she drinks the soup and its effects are immediately apparent. Her power and speed have been boosted, and she re-engages with Nide. Later, Chiza takes a call from her supervisor. He wants her to find out more about the reserve course in the school. It's a course that allows ordinary people to enter the extraordinary school, provided that they pay expensive tuition fees. When she gets back to class, she sees everyone playing games on a huge monitor with 16K resolution. They all have fun playing for a while before Hanamura comes in with a huge pot of stew for everyone. Everyone is really hungry and hurriedly eats the stew, but wait, there is something wrong with the stew. It was spiked with an aphrodisiac by Saionji. The effects are clear, and they are trying to resist in their own ways, while others are asking for the tip. Saionji is loving the show, but she miscalculated. While she thought up her plan, she failed to realize that she might become a target as well. As Hanamura is about to give her his radish, he is punched away by Nanami before she collapses. Nanami is later elected as the class president thanks to her actions, and everyone is in agreement. Hinata is staring at the main course building when he is interrupted by Kuzuryu. She calls him pathetic for wanting to get into the main course without a talent, but she too has no talent. She thinks that because her brother is incredibly talented, she must be as well, so she is determined to make it into the main course, no matter what, even if it involves getting rid of some of the main course students. Later, Hinata tries to head into the main course building to meet Nanami, but he is barred by the head of security. It is against the rules for the reserve course students to enter the main course building. When he presses further, the head of security decides to use force, and just as he is about to punch the living daylights out of Hinata, Chiza stops him. She tries to help Hinata, but he won't accept it and walks away. The head of security reminds Chiza that she is not here to defend the reserve students, but to uncover the dark side of the school. The class practical exams are coming up. The students will partake in a series of individualized tests which will determine if they get to stay at the school or not. But it doesn't seem like any of them are prepared for that. Nagito goes to Chiza in order to have the exam postponed for his classmates, but since it will be covered by the press, moving the date back would be impossible. He accepts it without much pushback and decides to take matters into his own hands. He gets Hanamura to connect him with the pharmacist in the upper class, and he goes to ask her to make him a laxative. She tells him to go get it from the storeroom, but while he is reaching for it, he mixes it up with the doping drug. At the same time, Maruka and Sonosuke walk in and ask for the doping drug to use in her sweets. Maruka seems very manipulative, and while the pharmacist objects at first, she later concedes the drug, but thanks to Nagito, she took the laxative. Nagito planted bombs in the gym as part of his plan to postpone the exam, but he bumps into Kimura and swaps bags with her. At the exam, Maruka serves the judges her sweets, but the laxative kicks in and she gets angry at Kimura for giving her the wrong drug. Kimura is confused and looks into her bag, but finds the bomb switch instead of her drugs. At the same time, Nagito is walking to the gym with what he thinks is a laxative when a dog causes him to spill some on the ground and then licks it. The dog grows to a tremendous size thanks to the doping drug, and then it runs into the gym, causing immense panic. In all that panic, Kimura falls over and sets off the bomb, blowing up the gym and effectively canceling the practical exams. This is the power of luck. He didn't have to get directly involved, but he still got what he wanted. Because of Nagito's hand in this, Shisa is transferred to the reserve course as punishment since she is his teacher, and Nagito is suspended. Shisa spends half a year at the reserve course, and after her term there is over, she had learned a lot about the school's plans. There are rumors about a project called Kamukura, and since that is the name of the founder of the school, it must be something big, and strangely, as the rumors began to spread, Hinata quit the school. She heads to the principal's office for her new class assignment, and to her surprise, she was assigned to her previous class. As she walks into the class, she is greeted by the students with a huge party. They've all grown up so much, especially Sayonji, who is now no longer a loli. But there is one guy who isn't enjoying the party, Mitsure, who apparently has a doppelganger who is working himself to death. At an airport, a girl gets out of a taxi and tips the guy with her entire purse. It might seem generous at first, but her purse had a bomb in it. The girl is Enoshima, and she is a bit of a sadist. She meets up with an admittedly older-challenged girl, Ikusaba. Enoshima seems to be friends with her, but she still tries to kill her anyway. While Ikusaba might stink, her combat skills certainly don't. She blocks all the strikes and even a grenade. They are new students of the main course. Meanwhile, Mitsuru corners Sumiki and carries her off to his room. We all know where this is going. He only wants her to treat the doppelganger. He explains how this situation started. The real Mitsuru hated everything except anime, so he, who is nothing but an imposter, got to take his place so that he can focus on anime. Sumiki thinks he is going to kill her now that she knows his secret, but he's fine with letting her go. At the same time, Hinata is strapped down and being experimented on by some shady individuals. Hinata is part of an experiment to load several talents into one talentless person. The scientists claim to have deleted his personality and rename him after the founder, Kamukura. Sakakura manages to acquire an identification card which belonged to one of the trustees that went missing recently. He gives it to Chisa, telling her that she has till 6 in the morning the next day to use it, otherwise it won't work. If she is caught, it won't be just her life that ends, but his too. She breaks into the office and finds files on the Kamukura project. It details the plan to create hope for humanity using an individual who has every talent combined. She stares at a picture of the trustee, the same one who is currently being tortured by Enoshima with curry of all things. She breaks into the facility that is holding Kamukura and uses the eyeball of the trustee that she murdered to get past the door. She meets with Kamukura, who doesn't seem too interested in her arrival. She tries to stab him, but with his talent, he is able to pin her to the ground in an instant. He wonders one thing: even though she has super analytical abilities, she still decided to attack him with no chance of winning. He stomps her out and she wakes up in the hospital, but as she was leaving, she runs into Mitsuru, another fateful encounter. Enoshima asks Mitsuru what his talent is, and he tells her that he is an animator. She goes to his house and watches his anime, and afterwards, she is converted to a hardcore anime fan. No other anime even deserves to exist after she has seen his work. In class, the students think that Nagito might have died, but we see him in a desert because of a plane crash. He seems to be doing fine though. Meanwhile, Sumiki and the imposter plan out what they are going to do to find the missing Mitsuru. Sumiki goes to Mitsuru's room to look for him, but she is met by Ikubasa, who kidnaps her. She is taken to the place where Mitsuru is being kept, and while the two reunite, she suggests that they watch Mitsuru's anime again. While the anime is playing, she turns up her processing speed and analyzes every detail of what makes the anime so moving, and now that she has the information, she can move forward with her plan. She later meets up with Kamukura to show him true despair. She leads him to a room full of students, who she then instructs to kill each other. They are hesitant at first, so she kills one of them to let their position set in. What follows is a gore fest of pink blood and senseless killing without rhyme or reason. And once it is all settled and there is only one guy left, He makes the mistake of attacking Kamukura with a chainsaw, and as expected, it backfires, leading to his gruesome death. Everything has gone to Enoshima's plan, but she is just getting started. The school officials are trying to cover up the incident in order to save face, but Enoshima sends out the news of the experiments they have been performing. The students are enraged by this discovery and try to storm the main course building, but they are held back by the security guards. Meanwhile, Michirai discovers Enoshima's killing video and finally realizes what she has been up to. She is the reason Sumiki is acting so weird, and she plans to do the same thing to the entire world. She used the information she got from his anime to create a brainwashing video that allowed her to make people go insane. But at the moment she isn't good enough at it, all she can do is turn people into masochists. So she wants Michirai to create the video for her, and though he doesn't want to, she threatens to kill his classmates if he doesn't. The rest of the class doesn't know what to do anymore, but then Naito walks in with his usual cheery attitude. He claims to have seen Sumiki, who to the others is still missing. She was seen near the West District, so the class goes to look for her. Nagito and Nanami form a team and happen to find the hidden passage. Thanks to Nagito's luck, they walk down the passage and find Michirai in a panic over what he is doing. All he wanted was to help the world with anime, so how did it turn out like this? Nagito points a gun at Enoshima, but Kamukura pops up behind him. He tries to shoot him, but Kamukura also has luck and the gun jams. Kamukura steals the gun from Nagito and shoots him in the chest, but his luck is still active and he is saved by a book in his pocket. Enoshima is happy that Kamukura has come to save her, but he is preoccupied staring at Nanami, his former friend. Nanami calls out to Hinata, but Kamukura has no idea who she is. Enoshima interjects to stop anything more from happening, and she introduces herself as the mastermind of this entire affair, but then she is hit by a fire extinguisher thrown by Chisa. Chisa instructs Nanami to take Nagito and leave before it is too late while she tries to hold them off. Nanami makes it back to class carrying Nagito on her back and informs the other students that their teacher is in trouble. The students contemplate whether or not to attempt a rescue since it is almost definitely suicide. Nagito tells them they are right to avoid it because they have no chance of winning, but Nanami still wants to join the fight. She gives a speech about how they can't just leave her there to die. Everyone gets riled up and they head out to go rescue their teacher. Meanwhile, Sakakura has identified Enoshima as the culprit of the murders that have been happening. He is instructed to not go too far in apprehending her, but he is fully prepared to lay the smackdown on this kid. At the same time, the worst is happening. Chisa is getting brainwashed by Enoshima. She's fighting back with everything she has. But how long can she last? Enoshima goes to find Michirai, who is running for his life. She tells him about everything that she has done and says goodbye. But she doesn't kill him. She wants him to run away full of fear and regret. That is his despair. With nothing else he can do, he runs from everything until he runs into a river and washes up on the banks. He curses his weakness. Meanwhile, Sakakura has finally found Enoshima, and even though she's a woman, his hands are rated E for everyone. The students make their way into the base, but they made one mistake. They brought Sumiki, who has been brainwashed, along with them. She pushes Nanami into a hidden passage in the wall without anyone noticing, and on the other side, Chisa is there to greet her with a smile, but there is one problem. Chisa never smiles like that. It would seem that Sakakura has been defeated by Enoshima, but he sure didn't go down without a fight. That's like 30 bodies he just caught. Enoshima then unveils her secret weapon to manipulate him, and she calls him gay and threatens to tell his boss that he is gay. She orders him to give a false report that she is innocent, and he reluctantly agreed to do it. The students wonder where Nanami went off to, and Sumiki lies that she sprained her ankle along the way, so she stopped to rest. They are led through a door, and at the same time, Nanami is sent down an elevator. It was all a trap. Enoshima wants to use Nanami as part of her death game and forces the others to watch. Nanami tries to make it through the maze, and she does avoid most of the traps, but little by little, she is worn down by traps, battered, wounded, and bruised. What a terrible fate for Best Girl. Just as she reached the goal, she is pierced by dozens of spikes, and now her death is certain. Watching this, the rest of her classmates succumb to the brainwashing. Sakakura gives the false report to Munakata, and he buys it. If Enoshima is innocent, then there are no more leads available to him. There's nothing he can do. Enoshima has won. All hope is lost, and the world will end. All the students are still brainwashed, so they act as though everything is normal while being fully under Enoshima's control. The most talented people in the world wreaking havoc will definitely cause untold chaos, and with all the other hypnotized people, there will be even more chaos. All the students now have twisted plans for their once innocent goals. After hearing all their goals, Chisa smiles and blows up the building. The principal is still clueless as to who the mastermind behind all of this is. He intends to shelter the remaining students in order to preserve the world's last hope. Kamukura bids her farewell and says they will meet again. After some time, Enoshima sends out a message which causes all the hypnotized people who see it to stop what they are doing and kill themselves. The principal gathers the remaining living students and builds a shelter for them. Everything has gone to Enoshima's plan, but the one thing that she can't predict is another student, Naegi Makoto, who has the luck stat. She throws a spanner at him, but he slips on a rag at that exact moment and dodges it. Chisa's students spread despair across the world, and the world fell into more and more despair. Time has passed since the despair event, and we see Naegi Makoto being arrested for treason. The former students of Hope's Peak have spread despair across the world, and to combat them, the Future Foundation rose up. They were mostly comprised of the earlier graduates of Hope's Peak. The battle raged on, but upon the death of Enoshima, there was a turning point. However, the terrorists still continue their activities, and many people lose their lives. The board of the Future Foundation meet to discuss Naegi's betrayal. One of the members raises the concern that with all of them present in the same place, if they were attacked, they would all be wiped out. And oh no, Chisa is here. But the chairman claims that they are safe since the island they are on isn't on any maps. Fair point, but when it comes to people who destroyed the world, I don't think that will be enough to keep you safe. Sakakura wants to kill off all the terrorists and be done with it, but that is easier said than done. They start to argue about it before Munakata comes in and tells them to be quiet, and they start the meeting to discuss Naegi's fate. He apparently saved some of the terrorists, but at the same time, he is humanity's hope, the same one that killed Enoshima, so at the very least, they should speak to him first. It could also be true that he just killed Enoshima as part of a decoy, and has always been on the side of despair. Naegi shows up for the meeting and is immediately put in handcuffs and then beaten up by Sakakura. But beating him up without giving him a chance to explain himself isn't fair, so Munakata calls for the meeting to be suspended. The girls who brought him here are also under suspicion, so they are not allowed to see Naegi. Meanwhile, Chisa treats Naegi's wounds and asks him why he saved her former students, despite everything they have done. His answer is basically they used to talk about doing things that bring hope before they fell into despair. Chisa doesn't necessarily disagree with his way of thinking, but these are harsh times, and the times don't call for mercy. Outside Munakata's office is Michirai, but then the building trembles and Asahina finds some dead security guards in the bathroom. And this is why the heads of an anti-terrorist organization should never meet at the same place, cause now you're under attack. Every exit to the building has been blocked off, they are trapped. But with all the leaders of the Future Foundation present, they have a good chance of fighting. That was until sleeping gas fills the room and everyone is knocked out. When they wake up, they find bands on their wrists with timers on them, then the monitor turns on and the black and white bear shows up and explains the death game they will be playing. But wait, where is Chisa? She's the first one to die. The bands are set on a timer, and when that time runs out, a sleeping drug will be injected and everyone will fall asleep. But while everyone is asleep, one traitor will wake up and kill one person. To win, you must find the traitor and kill them. There are also forbidden actions, which when performed will lead to a deadly dose of poison being injected. The same goes for trying to remove the bangle. One more thing, everything is being broadcast to the entire world. The servers, cell phones, and internet are down. The facility has impenetrable defenses against outside hackers, but no one thought of what to do when hacked from the inside. All the stairs and elevators are blocked, so they can't leave the floor that they are currently on. There's no choice, they have to find the attacker and kill them, and the first suspect is Naegi. Sakakura gets up in his face again and wants to beat him up, but Asahina stops him. But then he now wants to beat up Asahina, so Michirai stops him. But then he beats up Michirai, and as a consequence, one of the leaders dies because his forbidden action was witnessing violence. It was unforeseen, so they try to get everyone to reveal their forbidden action in order to prevent it from happening again. But there could be someone whose forbidden action is revealing it, so that idea is out. Munakata decides to vote on who the attacker is, and unsurprisingly, most vote for Naegi. He plans to keep voting one person out until the traitor is killed. He asks Naegi to kill himself to save the trouble, but Naegi doesn't want to, so Sakakura wants to do it instead, and there is now a bunch of infighting among them. The distraction allows Naegi and Asahina to leave the room, but Naegi can't run in the hall because that is his forbidden action. Meanwhile, Kyoko contemplates fighting, but the director comes up behind her and holds her, stopping her action. Michirai thinks this is sexual harassment, but the director says it isn't, so it can't be. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Munakata catches up to Naegi after busting through a wall while fighting Gozu, which by the way would be really useful for escaping the building. Gozu doesn't agree with killing teammates, so he fights Munakata and runs away carrying Naegi. Naegi's group decides to hide somewhere where it will be harder for the attacker to find them, so they barricade themselves in an office. The timer is ended and everyone is put to sleep, but the attacker is awake. Who will he take out first? Naegi wakes up and finds blood on his hands as well as a dead Asahina next to him. It turns out Asahina is still alive. It was just a toy knife and some tomato sauce. But the other puddle isn't tomato sauce and Gozu isn't fake dead. All the other groups wake up without any casualties, and Naegi's group thinks about how to prevent further casualties among them. They decide to go to the monitor room so that they can speak with everyone at once, and along the way they discover that Kyoko's forbidden action is turning right. She's now scared that her weakness has been found out, so Naegi tries to calm her down by showing her his forbidden action, and Asahina does the same. Asahina's forbidden action is being hit with a punch or a kick, so fighting is completely out of the card for her. They hear someone coming, so Ryoto creates a distraction while Naegi goes to the monitoring room. Naegi wanted to be the distraction, but since he can't run, there's no way he can do that. Outside, the fortune teller that came with them is trying to get their attention by yelling, but instead he gets the attention of a helicopter that tries to shoot him full of holes. Kyoko wants to go out and investigate who the killer might be. Midori is torn because they shouldn't be doing this to their comrades, but in this situation, they can't trust each other fully. Naegi's voice is heard over the intercom. He informs everyone that Gozu is dead. He understands that there are still some that believe he is on the side of despair because he saved some of the terrorists, but what actually happened was he found them there and realized that they only did this because of Enoshima, so he used the same brainwashing that she used to revert them back to their previous states. They should be back to normal now. He tells everyone his forbidden action to make it easy to kill him if anyone wants to. If he were the attacker, he wouldn't have done this, but Munakata and Sakakura still want to kill him. Ruruka and Sanosuke are cornered by Kimura, who has still got beef over what happened years ago. She uses her drugs to transform into a stronger form, one that Sanosuke can't defeat, so they run from it. Kyoko and the others are discussing Naegi's actions. He revealed his forbidden action to show that he trusts everyone, even if they are enemies right now. Shortly after, they are cornered by Sakakura when he throws a chair at Kyoko. Naegi is met by Munakata in the monitor room. Munakata thinks his speech was good, but his words alone cannot solve anything. His words may make people believe that they can win without fighting, and that will only lead to despair. It is no longer about him thinking Naegi is the killer. It is about stopping his dangerous ideals. The chairman tries to calm Sakakura down, but in his mind, if Naegi is working with despair, then his friends must also be doing the same. So he's going to take them out whether the chairman approves or not. Meanwhile, Sanosuke is still trying to run away from Kimura with Ruruka and Tao. They plant a bomb, but that proves to be ineffective against her current form. Sakakura thought he had beat the chairman already, but the old man still has some moves, and he teaches Sakakura a very important lesson about respecting elders. Asahina meets up with them, and after they reunite, Midori apologizes for being unable to help anyone. Asahina says he saved her life when he prevented Sakakura from hitting her, but he doesn't know about her forbidden action, so it seems like it's not a big deal. Just then, Munakata talks over the intercom. He states that he has captured Naegi and will soon execute him, but it is obviously a trap. Kyoko wants to go, but the director goes in her place. In the monitor room, Munakata reveals his plan to Naegi. He wants to lure the people who will come to save Naegi out. He doesn't plan on killing Naegi because he knows he isn't the traitor, but what would be worse than the actual traitor remaining in the ranks by pretending to have been killed in the game? That would truly spell the end of the Future Foundation. So Naegi and everyone who can use him to spread despair must die. Even if everyone here dies, the Future Foundation will go on. But just as he is about to behead Naegi, the chairman steps in and shoots his sword out of his hand. While Munakata is busy dodging the bullets, Naegi is rescued by Asahina. They make a run for it, but Sakakura finds them and gives chase while Munakata fights the chairman. Munakata being pressed by the chairman, and when he goes in for a strike, the sword is caught and he is thrown. He talks about his ideal to eliminate despair no matter how many die in the process. Those deaths are necessary to the cause. But when the chairman mentions Chisa's death, he goes into frenzy and slices his arm. But the chairman ends up dragging him down. Sakakura is stopped by Gecko Hara, who fires missiles at him. He manages to survive, and while she goes on about how powerful her next attack will be, he kicks her head and she is down. A closer look shows that she was a robot controlled by the despair remnant. Kimura met Ruruka when she was a little girl. Even then, her talent for making medicine was good enough to heal a dog that had been run over. They quickly became friends at first, but as time went on, she started to become dependent on Ruruka, and Ruruka started to take advantage of that. Now they are at odds, fighting to the death. She attacks what she thinks is her target, but it turns out to be a statue made from a special alloy that can harm even her. Munakata asks the chairman why he became a coward. He used to be so strong, but then he changed. His answer was that he realized that their way of doing things would not solve anything. You cannot extinguish despair with war alone. Naegi and Asahina wonder what happened to Gekogahara when Munakata busts through a wall holding a pipe. Naegi tells Asahina to run, but she isn't going to leave him behind. Kimura is fighting Sanosuke when she catches the sweet scent of Iruka. She's finally found her. Iruka's life flashes before her eyes and she recalls how badly she treated Kimura, but that was only because she refused to eat her sweets, the only thing she is good at. She stumbles and ends up turning on the high-intensity lights and Kimura becomes cautious of her shadow. Iruka notices this and now has a way to kill Kimura. Iruka gives her an option, eat her sweets and she will let her go, but she knows that if Kimura eats the sweets, she will die because she can't have sugar. So she makes another offer, kill Munakata. She isn't part of the despair remnants, but she thinks if he is killed, then everything will end. Kimura can't abide by such a request. Like she had nothing, Munakata saved her. She takes an overdose of her drug and destroys all the lights before going after Iruka again. Iruka runs away, but she runs into Sakakura and Asahina's fight, and just when Kimura looked like she would attack Asahina, Gekogahara comes in and blasts them. Munakata asks the chairman if he is the remnant of despair, but he says he isn't. Then he is asked if he knows who the remnant of despair is, and he gives the answer. To prove it, he shows that his forbidden action was lying. Munakata doesn't care, however, and kills the chairman. Kimura wonders where everything went wrong as the timer hits 0, and she is the next one to be killed. Munakata says his final goodbye to Chiza as he recalls the promise they made to each other on the day of their graduation. Naegi wakes up to find Kyoko's dead body next to him. Munakata pops out of nowhere and tells him that he is responsible for it. If he truly wanted to end despair, he would have killed himself. His words are nothing more than mere platitudes that can bring about no change. It turns out to be a nightmare. He wakes up near Asahina. He may survive, but that means that someone else has just died. Kyoko wakes up and covers Goju's body. There must have been another murder, so she wants to go find the body as soon as possible. They find Sanosuke's body with a single stab wound to the chest. Kyoko thinks that he must be the victim, but there is another body, Kimura's. Only one person is supposed to be killed at a time, so this doesn't make any sense. Naegi is starting to lose hope, so Gekogahara gives some words of encouragement, but it's really just a ploy by the remnant of despair to have him be more entertaining. They try to come up with a plan to beat the game, but with the rules of the game, it is really hard to win. But wait, what if they didn't play by the rules? What if they just left? If there is no exit, they can bust through the walls like they've been doing all this time. Kyoko inspects the dead bodies while Iruka is freaking out and need everyone to cooperate in order to avenge Sanosuke, so she calms down a bit. Gekogahara sets up a call with the Future Foundation, and it is received by Togami. He wants to hear about the current situation, but when Naegi mentions the killing game, he has no idea that it was happening even though it was supposed to be broadcast across the world. The remnants of despair no longer have the power they would need to do such a thing, so it is unlikely that it would happen. There were reports of a task force being sent to an island to kill the despairs that Naegi saved, and Togami promises to send all the men he has available to come help them. After the call ends, we learn that Togami was aware that the real Gekogahara had died, so the one that set up the call was a fake, but he didn't inform them because if her cover was blown, there is no telling what she might do. At least they got back up on the way. Towa is the mastermind behind this entire event. Even with Enoshima dead, she still seeks to spread despair, so she is using her robots to do just that. The squad that was sent to infiltrate Towa's island is smashing their way through the robots. Komaru Naegi is Naegi's sister. She is blasting the robots with a ray gun that has varying effects on things. Her friend Toko is there with her, but she isn't much of a runner, so there's not much she can do. That's until she shocks herself and goes into her alternate personality, a serial killer with amazing scissor skills. She has weird fantasies of Togami, really perverted, so perverted that even when he is miles away, he can still feel the perverted pressure from her imagination. He shrugs it off and orders his troops to go save the people trapped in the Future Foundation building. Komaru and Toko make it into Towa's building, but Towa was ready for them. She unveils her Gundam collection. It looks like a ferocious battle is about to ensue, but she surrendered. And even worse, she blows up the Gundams. When the dust settles, they find Towa in a van. It's her filthy private room. She's given up in such a short amount of time. She finds this whole thing embarrassing and just wants to be done with it. She has nothing to do with the death game. She was just using Gekogahara robot to watch Naegi. The reason she gave up is because Nagito bored her to death with his talk about hope and despair, so now all she wants is to be a meat. She just wanted to mess with Naegi a little, but she did kill the actual Gekogahara, but she's done with all that now. And in true meat fashion, she decides to go into space and never leave her room again. Toko tries to follow her to get her to reveal who the actual imposter is, but she doesn't want to. and if they keep following her, they'll be stuck in space too. They let her go and jump off the truck. As they fall, Komaru uses her ray gun to take control of some of the robots to have them catch her. They manage to land safely and use the computers there to get a message to Naegi. Using Gecko the Hera's monitor, they get to speak with Naegi to warn him about what is going to happen. Someone's going to die because of him. Two former teachers are on the battlefield firing missiles at the enemy. They talk about what they want to do after this is all over, and the woman wants to go back to being a teacher. She really enjoys it. They charge the enemy but end up staring down the barrel of a cannon, and one of the teachers is blown to bits. Naegi talks with his sister, and the two reminisce on the promise they made to each other and how much they care for each other. Toko cuts the borderline incest call short and gets Komaru to end the call. After the call has ended, the robot goes into autopilot mode. This doesn't seem good, so they run out but are met with Munakata ready to cut them down. The robot's autopilot mode kicks in and it enters Berserker mode to fight Munakata, while Naegi and Asahina run away. Kyoko is still looking for clues regarding the attacker while the others inspect the traps that Sanosuke had set. Kyoko finds marks on the floor where the secret passage lies and Ruruka is acting really suspicious, but Sakakura shows up with intentions to kill. Kizakura finds it strange that Sakakura would use a knife to fight. He deduces that Sakakura's forbidden action is to hit with his bare hands since he hasn't punched anyone despite being a boxer. He revealed his own forbidden action was to open his hand in order to bait Sakakura into attacking. It turns out that there was a pressure trap there which he sets off and gets stabbed by. Just when it seems they've won, Ruruka opens a trap door which nearly kills Kyoko, but Kizakura catches her at the last second. However, in the process he opens his hand and ends up poisoned. He falls to his death after saving Kyoko, and Ruruka gives Sakakura a sweet that brainwashes him into helping her and killing the others. Kyoko finally gets it. Ruruka killed Sanosuke. His body died of poison. The knife wound was caused after he died, and his forbidden action was eating food, and his saliva tasted sweet, and yes, she licked a dead guy's saliva. The reason behind it was that he found the exit and naturally wanted to leave, but that normally wouldn't have been a reason to kill him. The reason was because Ruruka's forbidden action is someone else leaving the building. She has to survive somehow. So when it came down to it, she chose to betray her lifelong friend. Sakakura wants to leave, but Ruruka pleads with him to stop because she will die. Meanwhile, Kyoko leaves with Midare. Sakakura opens the door, but to his utter shock, all that greets him is the deep blue abyss. They're in the ocean. I guess busting out isn't an option. Kyoko with her Giga brain had already realized this long ago that the exit wouldn't lead outside. They were most likely moved from the above-ground base to an identical room under the ocean. She realized this when the marks that had been made on the wall at the start had disappeared. But with that being the case, the most likely culprit would be Munakata. He was involved in the construction of this building from the start. There is no way he wouldn't find an exact replica of the building being constructed underneath it. Munakata is still fighting the Gecko Bahara robot, which has now entered Terminator mode, but Munakata has a fire sword now and slices its leg off. He has gone crazy with the only thought on his mind being to destroy Despair. He has severely damaged the robot and rips out its processor and then splits it in two, all the while saying he will become Hope. Sakakura pops up behind him and says they should get going. Kyoko suggests that they go and find Naegi, but Midare doesn't see how finding him will help, but Kyoko trusts that when he needs to be, Naegi can be insanely strong, as why she likes him so much. He is always able to get you through. Without him, she would be lost. Naegi was standing behind her this entire time. She's embarrassed, but pretends like nothing happened. They find some food and have a meal together and share the information they have so far. Naegi tells them about Togami coming to help them, but enough time has passed, so he should have been here. Something might have happened to him. And if so, it would be Naegi's fault. The thought that someone might die because of him makes him feel terrible, but Kyoko gives him some words of encouragement to get him back in high spirits. Sakakura notices Munakata's injuries and wants him to get first aid, but Munakata is unresponsive. He gives him a rundown of everything that has happened so far, and Munakata tells him he killed the chairman. Sakakura is shocked but tries to rationalize maybe it's for the best that Munakata becomes the new chairman. But then the ultimate death flag rises. Munakata starts talking about how happy they used to be, how loyal Sakakura has been to him, how much he trusts him. And after that, he stabs Sakakura to death. Ruruka saw the whole thing and realizes that everyone betrays everyone eventually. She's delusional. She's trying to justify that she did nothing wrong. In a flashback, we see that Sanosuke actually didn't want to go outside. After realizing that her forbidden action was allowing anyone to leave, he sealed the exit and was going to stay with her. By then, she has to go with a bitch move and kiss him, pushing candy into his mouth and causing him to be poisoned. She's all alone now thanks to her own actions, and she's the next one to die, and in quite the gruesome manner at that. But she's not the only death. Kyoko is also dead thanks to her forbidden action being to leave Naegi alive. She sacrificed her life for him, and Munakata over the intercom tells Naegi that his version Hope can solve nothing as now someone has died because of him. Naegi is devastated, but he grins and bears it. Of course, he can't just get over it. But he was entrusted with Kyoko's hope, so he's going to keep on moving forward no matter what. He prepares to go face Munakata, and as soon as he leaves the room, he begins to cry but still walks on. He spots the Gecko Mihara robot split in half by Munakata, and his legs begin to shake in fear, but he has to go on for Kyoko's sake. Two different ideas of hope clash, and the victor will decide the fate of the world. Naegi finds Munakata and is done hesitating. Munakata lunges at him, but Naegi runs out of the way and hides in a bright room. Munakata thinks he is being lured somewhere, but he doesn't seem to care. The others are still in the room worrying about Naegi when Asahina finds something under Kyoko's body. When Munakata enters the room, Naegi sets off the sprinklers, creating a puddle of water on the floor. He then throws some exposed wires on the water in an attempt to electrocute Munakata. Munakata somehow evades and uses his fire sword to evaporate the water, while firing a shot at Naegi's leg. The water is evaporated, but the fire sword no longer has fire in it, so it's back to just a regular sword. Munakata follows the trail of blood left behind by an injured Naegi. Naegi limps through the hall and spots a fire extinguisher, so he tries to lay out a trap. As Munakata follows the trail of blood, Naegi springs up, trying to knock him out with a fire extinguisher, but Munakata sees through the trap and kicks Naegi away. Naegi tries to use the fire extinguisher again, but it doesn't work. His luck seems to have run out. Munakata slashes the fire extinguisher away, but in doing so he causes it to launch at the back of his head, giving Naegi the perfect distraction to take Munakata to the ground. When the smoke clears, Naegi is on the ground and Munakata is ready to slice him in two, but at the last moment he stops. He can't kill Naegi because his forbidden action is opening a door. If he kills Naegi, he won't be able to exit the room. Munakata then resorts to using his hands to beat up Naegi. He will stop at nothing to rid the world of despair. The chairman told him that Chiza had been tainted by despair, and it was indeed true. That set him on his current path of destruction. But even if he has to kill his loved ones, he will wipe out despair. And he wishes he had never met Chiza. But Naegi says that even if Chiza had been tainted by despair and he had to kill her, he would have still been happy to meet her. This makes Munakata realize what he is doing isn't right. He lets Naegi go, and he goes back to normal. Asahina runs up and tells them that she found the attacker from what was written in Kyoko's journal. The journal shows her deduction. The only people near the victims were the victims themselves. They all had wounds to their chests. All evidence points towards self-murder. They realize that every single death occurred near a monitor, so somehow the monitor is causing the victims to kill themselves, but there's only one way to be sure. They have to test it on someone. And that someone is Naegi. They tied him up so that he can't kill himself if it works, and leave him near a monitor despite Asahina's protest. The time limit comes and everyone is put to sleep, but as predicted, Naegi wakes up to the monitor greeting him. They were right, but Monokuma isn't even there to begin with. It's just a recording that plays whenever it finds someone. Naegi stares at the screen as a video plays, which makes him hallucinate of his dead classmates. They say he should die, and Naegi goes crazy with guilt. A knife drops from the monitor, and he rushes over to it, fully intent on stabbing himself to death. But as he is about to plunge the knife into his heart, Sakakura shows up and pushes Naegi against a wall to stop him. He will not let Naegi kill himself. Naegi comes back to his senses and is shocked to see that Sakakura is still awake. That is because he cut his arm off to remove the bangle. He wanted to at least meet the attacker and stop them before they died. But there was never an attacker. The bangle would calculate the person closest to a monitor and wake them up afterwards. It would show them the video, causing them to go crazy and kill themselves. With this setup, the person who planned it might not need to be there at all, but at the very least, they don't need to kill each other anymore. Sakakura laughs. That doesn't make it any better. They killed their comrades for no reason because they were manipulated. He stands up to leave, but before he does, he admits to Naegi that he hated him because he defeated Enoshima. She manipulated him into giving a false report, and he betrayed his best friend. So seeing Naegi defeat her made him angry that he had fallen to her. In the end, he couldn't do anything he needed to, and now Munakata has thrown him away. Naegi returns to the others and confirms that all the previous deaths were suicides. Munakata says that aside from him, the only other person who could have altered the facility to such an extent would be the chairman. He was also the one that set Munakata on his rampage. He must have taken advantage of Munakata believing Chiza's lies and built this. Meanwhile, a dying Sakakura makes his way to the breaker room. It's a wonder that he hasn't died of blood loss yet. This man has a hole in his shoulder. a hole in his stomach, and an arm cut off. He turns off the power in the breaker room and causes the monitors to go off. This was the solution all along. As he turns off the last breaker, the bracelets fall off, but he can't hold out any longer and dies. Naegi asks Midori about the brainwashing video, and he says it was Enoshima that used his technology to do it. Just then, they get a message from the chairman, who is meant to be dead. The message they received from the chairman was a video of him explaining himself. In the video, the chairman states that his hope was the students, and the thought of them fighting, killing, and deceiving each other made him sad. Very, very sad, so he ended up doing it anyway. He had fallen to despair. Midori breaks down and decides to tell them everything. He created the despair video, which turned everyone who watched it into despair-seeking maniacs. He didn't fight. He ran away and hid from his problems, never telling anyone what happened until now. But he is done now. He will fight. If brainwashing is what got them into this mess, then brainwashing will get them out. He's going to upload his hope video to the world and change everyone to the side of hope. Ethically, I'm against it, but realistically, it needs to be done. Not everyone is strong enough to fight with their own willpower like Naegi. Naegi tries to stop Midori, but he brainwashes Asahina to get her to stop him, and as he is leaving, he runs into some soldiers that came to rescue them and brainwashes them into stopping anyone that tries to stop him by any means necessary. Okay, that is a little excessive. The soldiers try to shoot Naegi, but Munakata saves him in time. They discuss what has happened, and Naegi explains the brainwashing that Midori wants to do. Naegi realizes that this was the chairman's plan all along. He wasn't a remnant of despair, he just wanted to push Midori into using that video. Soldiers pour into the building and attack. Munakata draws them away as a distraction, while Naegi and Asahina head for Midori, but along the way, Asahina was shot in the leg. Naegi dresses Asahina's wounded heads to stop Midori on his own. Midori uploads the video in 30 minutes. It will be broadcast to the world. On a side note, in the afterlife, Shisa and Enoshima are watching the events unfold. Shisa caused a lot of destruction. She turned her students evil, turned Munakata against everyone, and led to the destruction of the Future Foundation, but now she thinks hope is coming. Not like it can interfere in any way, they're dead. Naegi is running to stop Midori, but the guard he had hypnotized began firing at Naegi. There doesn't seem to be a way through. But then someone on a hill kicks a stone, and that stone hits another stone and another until an avalanche is formed. That seems lucky. It was Magneto. Class 77 is back. All of them are normal again, and would you look at that, it seems that Soda is finally scoring some points with Sonia. Hinata is also back, and no one can really stop him. He makes it to Midori and tries to reason. With him, a world without pain and sadness sounds good, but with that, we cease to be human. But Midori retorts that not everyone is strong enough to overcome it like him. Because of him, millions of people died and all their classmates were brainwashed into despair. This is the only way to make things right. His classmates show up to tell him that he doesn't have to do this. Yes, he made mistakes, but if he is still alive, he can atone for the mistakes. Just like the rest of them, they will welcome him with open arms. Midori stops the transmission and breaks down crying. Class 77 is now leaving the island. They are still wanted criminals after all, but before they leave, they make a video which makes it look like they cause all the destruction in order to preserve the reputation of the Future Foundation. On the ship, while the others are eating meat, Hinata is on the deck with best girl Nanami. Even if she is just in his head, it is nice to see her one more time. This is the good ending. Sumiki examines a bottle of medicine to slow the action of the poison on the body. She found someone who was in a comatose state from the medicine and revived them. This person is Kyoko. Years later, we see Kyoko as the vice principal of the New Hope School and Naegi as the principal. The end. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.